Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News.
Ojy Okpe is here to discuss her interview with Nigerian Hollywood actor Adewale Akinnuoye Agbaje. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you on at this time.
Thank you. I know. Good morning, Ruben.
Good morning,
Dr. Amati. How are you?
Good to see you.
Tunde, lovely. Always. What's going on? You're so beautiful these days.
She's always beautiful.
No,
I don't know how to take that.
No, but then when I was watching you with the headlines, I was like, what is happening?
Well, thank you.
That's all you need to say. All right. Okay. Adewale Akinnuoye Agbaje, or Triple A, as he's fondly called by his peers, has an amazing story behind his name. His middle name is Eniton, which means a person with a history behind his name. Adewale grew up without love, but decided to tell a story about love with his directorial debut, Farming. So there is so much to learn about his character in the film, which is essentially a story about his life. Here's a special feature on the man who deserves more than an accolade.
Important for me to portray the realities of what that world was. I wasn't going to sugarcoat it. You've never seen a movie in any way, shape or form that targets and really exposes and illuminates the realities of the day for a young black person growing up in England. And it was important for me to do that because for many years I never felt I was ever represented by society, whether it was in jobs, movies, anywhere. And you know, and it will not happen unless, you know, it happens by a black person.
He's an award-winning actor with a career spanning more than 2 decades and has appeared in over 50 films. His credits include his groundbreaking role as Simon Adebisi in the HBO prison drama Oz.
All right. You tell that guinea something from me then. We got rats.
Who have let Oyinbo come in and use us. Our people who don't pretend what we have got.
Adewale also starred as Mr. Eko in the acclaimed television series Lost, for which he shared a Screen Actors Guild Award for outstanding performance by an ensemble in a drama series.
I never trained as an actor, never trained as a writer or director, you know, so I came into the industry late. You know, I was a graduate. I had a bachelor's and master's degree in law. That's what I studied. So when I came into the entertainment, you know, I was a novice and I learned on my feet. But the big breakthrough, as you alluded to, was Oz, and you know, it showed the industry that I really had acting chops, and a lot of consequent movie roles came from that performance. And I was really lucky to be able to traverse both TV and film, you know, with Lost as well, which then took it to a different level. But what it hadn't prepared me for was the invasion of privacy with fame.
It's nothing. The remote is of who I tell it. Ojy Okpe.
Adewale's acting career has seen him perform in some of the most successful and highly acclaimed films of the 21st century. Some of his film credits include Concussion.
You know, my father can't remember a thing. He never played a day of football. He was too busy working in a factory, you quack.
I beg your pardon.
You take your science, go back to Africa, and get away from my game.
For those of us about to die, we salute you. I die a free man.
Chancellor, it is with great pleasure that I ask you to confer the degree of Doctor of Literature, honoris causa, on Adewale Akinnuoye Agbaje.
Your Royal Highness, and Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, Pro-Vice Chancellor, graduates, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great joy and heartfelt gratitude that I humbly accept this prestigious honorary doctorate. You have graciously placed me in the company of many great men and women who have received this honor before me. I'm truly humbled to be included among them. My journey to this podium has been a miraculous one fraught with difficulties and obstacles. As a little boy in Tilbury, never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined such an honor being bestowed upon me. And as a young black boy growing up in England, I never felt I belonged or had a place. But today, you have given me that place.
Adewale has a law degree from King's College London and a master's in law from the University of London's International Programme. While studying at the university, Adewale worked in a clothing shop where he was introduced to the world of modeling. His modeling career led him to Hollywood, where he began his acting career in 1995 with a role in the movie Congo. Adewale's constant presence on our screens since 1995 made him a little more conscious of his fame.
It's certainly as an actor, when I was acting predominantly, it was better for me to keep some kind of reserved presence about my own life so that people can then really invest in the characters that I'm playing, you know what I mean? Because if they know me as a celebrity, it's hard for them to suspend their creative license to believe who you're playing.
In 2004, Adewale wrote and directed a short film based on his life. He then developed the short script into a feature-length script at the Sundance Institute Screenwriting Lab. In 2007, Adewale won the Story Development Award by the Annenberg Foundation and the World City Award at Sundance in 2012.
This is a story about a young black child who grew up in circumstances that were emotionally and psychologically abusive, faced extreme adversity in the community and a society that was hostile to his culture and his color.
Adewale's life story and international success has inspired thousands of people facing hardships across the globe. His directorial debut, Farming, which is an autobiographical film about his experiences being farmed out by his Nigerian parents to white working-class foster family in England, got the emotions of many in the film industry and beyond.
So before starting the project, I didn't know anything about farming. Adewale was my major insight, and then I spoke to my mum, as I'm Nigerian, and she, came over to London in the 70s, and she had spoke of friends she knew who had sent their kids over also, who were also, they didn't join skinheads, but they had similar experiences with regards to, racial tolerance to Adewale. So, but Adewale was so thorough and so specific about his experiences, and he told me one time he was walking and a police officer called him over and just said, "Hey, come over here," really nicely, and he walked over to the car, spat in his face, and then said, "Get out of here." Stories like that, when you hear those stories, it's really easy to understand what the times were like. And I think it's very important for the world to know of this phenomenon because it happened to a lot of young people.
I was really moved by the fact that of the story of Addy, really, and I thought the script was really well written. I actually didn't know very much about anything about farming and all of that, and it seems so extraordinary to have lived in London and everything, and it doesn't. I don't think that many people outside of the Nigerian community and some of the foster community really were aware of that. I definitely wasn't. So I found that really, really interesting, and it's such a, incredible journey that he goes on through the movie, and really ends up in this state of such kind of redemption and grace, and then meeting Adewale, you really get that sense of grace from him too. So it was really all of that, and I love a character that's, you know, one minute you hate her and the next minute you sort of sympathise with her a bit and then you hate her again. I'm very attracted to those kind of parts. So
it's clearly a part of our history as Nigerians, and it explains a lot as to how Nigerians are so rooted here in the UK. And I think it's an important story to be told, quite frankly. I was happy when Ade asked me to be a part of this. I mean, I'm honoured, and to see that he's the man he is today and had to go through this. I think it's a story that should motivate quite a number of people.
Adewale was in Lagos for the African premiere of the movie, and I had the pleasure of sitting down with him for an in-depth conversation of his autobiography and much more. Adewale Akinnuoye Agbaje, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
No, I mean, it's fine. You're here to promote your directorial debut, Farming.
Yeah, it's a wonderful occasion. It's always wonderful to come home, but to come home with, you know, a project that I've been pregnant with for about 15 years,
yes,
and to bring it home to my home audience for who it was intended is wonderful. Farming was a term used by British social workers to describe a practice that occurred in Britain throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, whereby the Nigerian immigrants coming to Britain would foster or farm their children out to white working class families. And now this is thousands and thousands of Nigerian children fostered all over the country. And the idea was that, you know, the Nigerian students would study and work, and once they'd achieved what they set out to accomplish, whether it was education and saved enough money, they would then collect their children and return to their native home. That was the idea of farming. So the film follows my journey. I was farmed at 6 weeks old to a white couple in the southeast of England in an area known as Tilbury, which happened to be probably the worst place you could put black children at that time, because it was inherently racist, and they'd never seen black children in that part of the country at all. So the film documents my journey through that practice, and you know what the outcome of that was for me.
I have seen the trailer. I'll tell you, it is so graphic. Now, this farming process went on for, what did you say, 30 years?
Yeah, you know, throughout the 60s right through to the 90s. In fact, there was a case in the 2000, the Victoria Climbie case, where a young Nigerian child died at the behest of her foster parents. And that's when the courts actually come in and investigated the practice. Wow. And so it wasn't until that case that we actually saw the prevalence and diversity of the practice across the country.
Now, have you met other children that have been farmed out, like in recent times or during your process of growing up?
On average, about 6 out of 10 every Nigerian of my generation went through the practice to a larger or lesser degree. So I've met so many, and in fact, obviously, when I was doing the film, many people started to share their own experience. Yeah, reach out. They were sending photographs, and you know, I was so moved by the outpour that I felt, you know, an obligation to honor that in the film. So at the end of the film, there's a mural of all the different photographs of different children in the various parts of England that went through it. And that has continued.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's still coming out. And I think that's the wonderful thing about the film. It's provided a voice for that forgotten generation, and a platform for them to actually start to talk about their experiences.
And I was asking you, is it just peculiar to Nigerians, or were there other tribes that were doing this farming process?
There were some sporadic cases where Ghanaians had done it, but this was predominantly Nigerians. This was a Nigerian phenomenon, and you know, it was within our own community.
Okay, do you think that anything has really changed right now with the way Nigerian immigrants, their relations with Britain, or the way that they are perceived in Great Britain right now?
I mean, this practice was born out of, necessity was the mother of invention in a way. I mean, you know, the immigrants coming to Britain at that time were perceived as
an expedient labor force. You know,
Right.
they would come there, yes, to get an education and work, but to help build the economy. So, you know, and there was this need to sort of like survive, you know, work and study, and then give the children an English education and put them with a white foster mother so they could also speak English. So the times were different then. But, you know, my generation became the first black British generation to be born on British soil. So that practice is no longer necessary to a degree because we have a base. You know, there's a generation that are black British. So things have changed in that regard. But in terms of the nation's relationship to its immigrant population, not really, unfortunately. And that was evidenced by just, 18 months ago, the Foreign Secretary had to resign because, you know, the government tried to expel the West Indian pensioners after they'd contributed their lives for 50 years and they wanted to throw them back out to their country that they hadn't been to.
Right.
So that, to me, is indicative of the attitude that they have to the immigrant population.
And this is your directorial debut. Very seldom do you see actors move or transition from acting to directing, especially African Americans or even, you know, Africans from Europe, Asia, or what have you. How was that transition process for you, and why was that important for you to transition?
You know, in writing the project, because I wrote it as well, you know, I realized that I needed to direct this material because we hadn't had a searing perspective from a black British, you know, person, whether it's female or male, on the cinema, on the screen, in years. You know what I mean? And so it was important that it was not only told by a black person, so that you could be authentic with the subject matter, but also a person that actually gone through it, because there's different nuances. I wasn't a voyeur. I could take you through the labyrinths of what it felt like. But obviously it was challenging because, as you said, back then, it was rare for actors to make the transition to directors. We were considered we should stay in our lane. And it was very rare for a black actor to do it. So there were a lot of hoops for me to jump through. And how I, you know, navigated those was I financed a short film myself. I shot it. And when I was going around pitching, you know, I would present that. So the idea of me being the director really never came up after that. So, but still, it was challenging to raise the finance on a story that was inimitably, you know, about a black subject matter, and that was so searingly honest. It was very challenging.
So for your first film, I mean, this was such an emotionally disturbing movie with a lot of, you know, emotional scenes. How were you able to convince your characters to play the role that they're playing, and how easy or how difficult was that for you?
Well, as an actor primarily, we're always drawn to the material. Right. So to be quite honest with you, that was the easiest part. Really? You know, once you have a good script, actors will, you know, gravitate to it. And fortunately also I was in the business, so I'd worked with Gugu and Butterraw, who came on board first. You know, and she gravitated to the material, as did Kate Beckinsale, Jamie Winston, and ultimately Damson Idris. So that part of it was, you know, just more procedure. But the difficult part, obviously, is having to relive some of those emotional, traumatic scenes for me, and having to impart it to my cast and explain to them what I was going through.
And you played your father. You had to step into his shoes.
I did, yes. It was a very surreal and cathartic experience because it was the first time that I'd actually stepped in his shoes, both literally and metaphorically speaking, and was able to look at myself from his perspective whilst being empathetic to him as well and running the scene. So it was there was a lot going on there, but it was a very interesting and surreal experience to do that, because I saw things about myself and about him that I wouldn't had I not really, you know, taken that on. But obviously, I wouldn't recommend it to everybody. It's
starting out for the first
emotionally and psychologically,
wow.
it will test you. But it was necessary for the project, and that's what we did. But yeah, I mean, look, the material is honest. It's a reflection of what it's like as a black child to grow up in Britain in the 80s when it was quite racist and quite unforgiving of the black immigrants coming to the country. And for that, I had to be honest, not only just because it was my personal experience, but it reflected the experience of a generation. And so what's been rewarding is they've gravitated to the film as their own voice, and it's a platform, become a platform for like a collective therapy for those that have gone through the practice.
Amazing. And we had our Nollywood goddess, Genevieve Ojy, play your wife, right, in the film. How was that chemistry for you, being that it was the first time you're doing a film with her?
Well, you know, I've watched Genevieve's work for many years, and I've been a fan. And always I knew that when I was going to direct, I'd always wanted to bridge Hollywood with Nollywood and take some of the talent that we have here and put it on the big screen on a large platform. So Genevieve, it was a perfect role for her to play my biological mother. And
she played your mother.
Yes,
not your wife in the film.
Well, she did, because I played my father. Okay. So she did play my wife and my biological mother. So you're right.
Yes. Okay.
And you know, look, how was the experience? No, it was wonderful because I respected her work.
Yes.
But two, because she's just a consummate professional, and we were in the clique, and she was very much behind promoting the story and the importance of it, you know, and the fact that it's a Nigerian woman. It was effortless for us, but she delivers an amazing performance. I can't wait for you guys to see Genevieve on the big screen, and it was an absolute pleasure working with her, you know, so hopefully the first of many.
Yes. What do you make of the growth of the Nollywood, industry? You know that her film was selected to be, entered into the Oscars for Best International Film. What do you make of that?
You know, I think it's exciting. I mean, we as Africans, we're storytellers. You know, it's in our blood, and now that's being recognized on an international scale. Right. And I think it bodes well for the industry, the young emerging talent. I'm excited to see how the infrastructure can build here, so that people here actually get jobs out of it,
Right.
And that's why it's also really exciting to come home with a project that not only hires Nigerian actors, has also hired a cameraman from Nigeria to help shoot some of the scenes that we did in Africa. So, I think the Nollywood film industry here has so much potential to expand, and I would say in the next 50 years it will equal or go beyond Hollywood.
I like equal. I mean, I even go beyond, but I love that equal because I think that we deserve it. And also, I know that back in July, you were inducted into that diverse list, that inclusive list of the 842 members of the Oscars, the Academy, right? Did that have anything to do with the inclusion of Lionheart for the Oscars?
I think it had more to do with farming.
And, it had more to do with farming.
Yeah, and also my body of work. I've been in the Hollywood industry.
Is farming part of the
No, so what it is, I became an Academy member this year, and it was really because of my contribution as an actor. I came in the category as an actor, so for 25 years I've been working in Hollywood movies, and it was finally and gratefully recognized. So, and I'm sure, my work as a filmmaker has influenced that as well, but I came in the category as an actor, and so I'm hugely honored because that's my profession, and to be among my esteemed peers is great.
It was about time. I mean, the list was amazing. You were side by side with Tunde Kalani and also Chinonye, I believe.
Yes,
I mean, I thought that it was about time. Why do you think it took that long for the Academy to have that type of inclusion?
Man, I mean, change, it takes time, doesn't it? And I mean, I can't really fathom the reasons, but to be honest, I'm just glad I'm still in the business and we're here.
Right. I could never forget those moments when I saw you. I'd see you on the red carpet with your braids, and I'll be like, "Wow, he's Congratulations.
I'm very proud to be as well.
On everything that you have achieved, really. I have just one last question for you before we wrap this up. I'm sure a bunch of people have asked you this question.
What's that?
You know, are you single? Are you dating? Are you mingling? What is going on with Adewale?
I've been so focused on getting my baby out,
yes.
but certainly Adewale is open for business.
Oh, you're open for business. Any Niger babe?
No, not yet, not yet.
Adewale, I must congratulate you as well because you have also maintained your authenticity. You have your name, Adewale Akinnuoye Agbaje, and everyone has to pronounce your name. My name is Ojy. I had to make people change my name to Ojy. I mean,
well, you know,
amazing
I always feel if I have to learn
yes.
Schwarzenegger or Spielberg, you know, why wouldn't they want to learn mine? You learn other cultures, and that's how you understand people. So
really?
It's who I am.
You're amazing. Thank you so much for joining me on this program.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
His name is Enito.
Please take care of our son. It's just until we finish our studies.
Do you want to be Mummy's favourite?
Ran out of electric. We've got to do is ask him to smile.
Like up the old bleeding street.
Filthy disease. I'm gonna step you out.
Did you ever have any dreams of what you wanted to be growing up as a boy, Annie?
Like paper, clean and white. You're a pet. Tilbury skins. Tilbury skins. Tilbury skins. Tilbury skins. Tilbury skins.
You've been running with them Tilbury skins, haven't you?
Beating up your own kind, thinking they want you. You ain't like them. You're better.
They took everything that boy had.
Honey, oh my God. Look at his face. They fear their own kind.
I cannot know all that you have been through, but every day we get to make a new choice.
Wow, well done,
Well done there.
Thank you.
Quite a great job. And then you chose a great subject too for a man who did not train as an actor or as a director. I think what he's been able to achieve is phenomenal.
Yeah, I know.
And I like the fact that he was making the point that, look, the story is not just about him, you know, and he's right on that score. He says it's a film about a whole generation, you know, a generation of Nigerians who went to the United Kingdom in the 60s and 70s and who needed to survive, go to school or earn a living, and how to farm out their children. And I think that, you know, the film will speak to, you know, a whole generation of Nigerians who had a similar experience.
I mean, first of all, for our viewers, the movie comes out today. I think it's such an important movie for everyone to see, especially Nigerians, to go watch this movie so we can learn about our history.
Marketing.
Yes, I know, but it's very important.
It's important.
It's for us.
I would like to see it.
I thought it was very important that he came to Nigeria also to touch base with everyone and to discuss the phenomena that happened during that time. So you know what happened was a child had died during this adoption process, and that's how the investigation started. If you know Victoria Climbey's case, it's such a graphic case of humanity and really horrible.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Yes, it was. Sorry about love. So
Ojy, thank you.
amazing. Thank you.